Did you know that the Independent Complaints Commission was established in 2010 but only began its operations 10 years later? And what really happens after the commission investigates a complaint against the police? Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the ICC Podcast. I am Sela Kantaini and it's great to have you with us. It's Friday, July 3rd, 2026.
When the first commissioner was appointed, he was being housed in one of the offices in Parliament buildings, and then he had to look for proper accommodation of offices. And initially, he had the officers that were seconded from the civil service as support officers.
In this episode, we continue our conversation with the ICC's Deputy Director of Investigations, Grant Kankulungo, as we take a closer look at the Commission's history, its structure, and what happens after an investigation is completed.
Malawi has had Malawi Police Service as an institution from way back, and from that time until 2010, the Malawi Police Service, and then it was also called Malawi Police Force, it has been using an old law. So in 2010, different stakeholders in the governance, rule of law, came together to say that we need to review the Malawi Police Act. And this review was done in 2010. That brought about the new Malawi Police Act of 2010. And in there, the Malawi Police has been given the function to ensure law and order in Malawi. But as we all know that as Malawi Police Service, they have powers, and sometimes these powers are used excessively and without regard to law. The stakeholders also came about to say we need to have an independent institution that should be able to handle, to receive and investigate complaints that may come about from the public against the police. Before the establishment of the ICC, if one had issues with the police or the conduct of the police, what they would normally do is they would also go back to the police and complain. And the end result, they never got the remedy that they wanted. So the establishment of the Independent Complaints Commission came in as a remedy to this problem. So it has to be known that the institution itself is also established under the Malawi Police Act from Section 128 to receive and investigate complaints from public against police officers or police service. When they established it in 2010, it took about 10 years to have human resource on the ground. You know, sometimes Malawi has been blamed for coming up with very good documents, legal structures, but then the actual implementation of such kind of issues becomes an issue. So this is one good example. The review of the law was done 2010. It took 10 years before the appointment of the commissioner of the Independent Complaints Commission, who is the head of the Independent Complaints Commission, was appointed by Parliament. That also has to be emphasized. The head of the Independent Complaints Commission is appointed by the Parliamentary Committee through an open process, advertisements, people apply, and the interviews are conducted. And that commissioner was appointed 2020, and he was given the mandate to institute the office. So he had to now start employing, which took us about 1.5 years to set up an office. So in terms of the operations on the ground, most of the operations started late 2021 to early 2022. It was not easy, as I said. When the first commissioner was appointed, he was being housed in one of the offices in Parliament buildings, and then he had to look for proper accommodation of offices. And initially, he had the officers that were seconded from the civil service as support officers, post staff, and then he started recruiting technical staff. So, in other words, we hit the ground running, because by the time this institution was established, there were numerous complaints, and we carried out investigations in some of them.
The commission is made up of different departments. Mr. Kankulungo now explains the structure of the commission and how its different sections work together to deliver on the ICC's mandate.
The structure itself is we have a commissioner, Then we have a Director of Legal and Investigations. Then we have a Deputy Director of Investigations. Then we have Chief Investigations Officer, Chief Legal Officer, Principal Investigations Officer, Principal Legal Officer. Then we have investigators and we have assistant investigators. These are technical people. And we also have a documentation department that has 2 officers currently. And then we also have the civic and education section. We also have 2 people there, 2 ladies, Principal Civic Education Officer and the Civic Education Officer. If you ask me if we have policemen, I would tell you that we only have 2 ex-policemen. These are people that know the operations of police itself. So they also assist us. One of the officers is an expert in ballistics. So if we have cases where a firearm was used, this is the officer that we use to examine those firearms from the police. These are the type of officers that we have, very qualified investigators as well as very able legal officers and civic education officers.
One of the questions often asked is, what happens after the Commission completes an investigation?
In the Act, we are given powers to make recommendations after our investigations. So we make recommendations to the Inspector General if we find that police officers' conduct is wanting. So we make recommendations for disciplinary action. But then we also make recommendations to the Director of Public Prosecution when we find that the conduct is criminal in nature.
And that brings us to the end of this week's edition of the ICC Podcast. Today, we learned why the Commission began its operations 10 years after it was established, how it is structured, and what happens once investigations are completed. Remember, if you would like to lodge a complaint against a police officer or the Malawi Police Service, call our toll-free line 4314. I am Sela Kantaini. Thank you for listening and goodbye.